Right now, as you're watching this, engines are grenading in driveways across America. Not old beaters with 200,000 miles on them, brand new trucks, six-figure SUVs, vehicles you'd trust to drive your kids to school. GM, Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, the names you were told you could count on, are sitting on millions of failing engines, and they're praying you don't connect the dots. Some have caught fire, some have seized at highway speed, and the scariest part? The reason they're failing isn't a fluke, it's a decision. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why it's happening, who's responsible, and whether your engine is already living on borrowed time. The numbers nobody wants you to add up. On their own, each of these recalls sounds manageable. Stacked together, they tell a staggering story. So let's stack them and see what the automakers would rather you didn't. Start with GM. In 2025, it recalled around 721,000 trucks and SUVs over its 6.2-liter V8, a bearing and crankshaft defect that can make the engine seize without warning. Silverados, Tahoes, Suburbans, Yukons, Escalades. The exact vehicles families load their kids into every morning. And here's the kicker. In early 2026, regulators reopened the case because owners said the fix didn't fix it. Their engines kept dying after the repair. Then Toyota, the company built on engines that run forever. Its twin-turbo V6, the one that replaced the legendary Tundra V8, has been recalled in wave after wave, now approaching 270,000 engines. Brand new Tundras, six-figure Lexus SUVs. And the most damning part? Some of those engines were built after Toyota added steps to stop the problem, and they failed anyway. Honda's next. The brand that never breaks. Its trusted 3.5-liter V6 saw around 250,000 vehicles recalled in 2023. Then regulators blew the doors open, probing 1.4 million more going back to 2016. Some engines grenaded under 40,000 miles, leaving owners with $20,000 repair bills. And Hyundai and Kia have lived this longest, over 1.5 million engines recalled since 2017, more than $1 billion in settlements. Here's the detail that unlocks this whole video. When they replaced the failed engines, many replacements failed the exact same way. Added up, 4 of the most trusted automakers on Earth. Millions of engines, billions of dollars. This isn't a bad batch or one unlucky year, it's a pattern. And once you see what's driving it, you can't unsee it. When physics sends the bill. So what's actually killing these engines? The automakers point to a little leftover debris, a bad batch of parts. Nothing to lose sleep over. But pull that thread, and a very different picture shows up. One that has almost nothing to do with bad luck, and everything to do with physics. Modern engines are being pushed harder than anything that came before them. Automakers are chasing horsepower numbers that used to live only on the racetrack, and they're wringing them out of engines half the size of the ones your father drove. Picture it this way. A big V8 from the 90s made maybe 60 horsepower per liter. Today, Ford's little 2.7-liter EcoBoost makes around 120. The Raptor's 3.5 climbs near 130. Double the power density, twice the heat, twice the pressure, and far less metal to soak it all up. Then there's the oil. Chasing every last drop of fuel economy, manufacturers keep going thinner. 5W30 became 0W20, then 0W16. Now in some engines, 0W8, barely thicker than water. And here's the trap. Thin oil only survives if everything else is flawless. The clearances, the machining, the cleaning, tolerances measured in microns, with zero room for error. Record pressure, brutal heat. The thinnest oil film in history, all balanced on a process that has to be perfect every time, across millions of engines. Engineers didn't forget how to build a reliable motor. They were handed demands that fight the laws of physics. And lately, physics has been winning. The spec that kills. Now here's where it gets unsettling. Because the thing tearing these engines apart isn't some massive flaw you could spot with the naked eye. It's smaller than a grain of sand, and by the time it does its damage, it's already too late. It has a name in the engine world: swarf. Microscopic metal debris left behind when a factory cuts, drills, and hones an engine block. The big shavings are easy to flush out. It's the ultra-fine stuff, the dust shaved off the cylinder walls during honing, that becomes the assassin. Think of it like this. That leftover grit is harder than the bearings it lands on, sharper too. And it clings to the inside of the engine like it's been glued there. Now fire that engine up. Spin it to thousands of RPM. One speck works its way between the crankshaft and a bearing. And suddenly you've got sandpaper running at highway speed. First it scores the metal, then it grinds. Then the bearing gives out, and the whole engine follows. Here's the part that should worry you. Cleaning every passage well enough to catch that grit takes patience. Hot tanks, pressure washing, scrubbing the same channels over and over. A skilled builder can do it for one engine, but these companies are pumping out thousands a day. At that pace, perfection isn't a goal, it's a fantasy. So they trust automated rinses, quick inspections, and hope. Thinner oil, tighter clearances, harder, less forgiving parts, and a single speck of dust that can end it all. It's a house of cards, and the cards are already falling. The pileup. Here's what makes this crisis so brutal. It's not one flaw, it's a dozen, all hitting the same engine at once. Strip them apart, and each one sounds survivable. Stack them together and you understand why these motors are dropping like flies. So let's stack them, fast. First up, start-stop systems. Every time your engine shuts off at a light and restarts, oil pressure drops to nothing for a split second. And that split second is where most wear happens. Modern commuters now do dozens of these every single trip. It's why a fleet truck cruising the highway often outlives a city truck with half the miles. Then there's direct injection. Fuel blasted straight into the cylinder at thousands of PSI. Great for efficiency, but it stops washing the valves clean, so carbon cakes up and combustion runs hotter and harder. Add turbocharging to the mix. Tiny engines forced to act big. Turbos spin north of 150,000 revolutions per minute and live or die by clean, perfectly flowing oil. Starve them for even a moment, and they can fire metal shrapnel straight through the engine. Now layer on cylinder deactivation. Shutting off half your cylinders to save gas sounds clever, until you factor in the uneven heat, the uneven wear, and the shock load when they all slam back on. And the wild card on top of it all, the chaos of pandemic-era factories. New suppliers, skeleton crews, rushed inspections. A lot of those engines are only now crossing 60, 80, 100,000 miles, right where hidden defects finally surface. One problem: an engine can survive. 10 at once? Nothing survives that forever. If this is connecting the dots for you, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps. Now let's keep going. Follow the oil. Now here's the part the manufacturers would rather you didn't think too hard about. Because the official story, just a little leftover debris, has a crack in it. And once you see that crack, the whole explanation starts to come apart. Start with Hyundai and Kia. When their engines began dying years ago, the answer was always the same: contamination, debris, a manufacturing slip. So they recalled them, replaced them, over 1 million engines. And then a chunk of those brand new replacements failed the exact same way. Sit with that for a second. If the problem were truly just dirt, a clean engine should have solved it. It didn't. That's not a cleaning problem. That points straight at the design. Toyota tells a similar story. After the first recalls, they added extra steps to scrub the debris out and built cleaner engines. And some of those cleaner engines still failed. Again, if dust were the whole answer, that shouldn't be possible. But here's the detail that gives away the most: GM's own fix. For the recalled 6.2-liter V8s, GM didn't just clean them, it told owners to switch from 0W20 oil to 0W40, roughly double the film thickness. So ask yourself the obvious question: if thin oil was never part of the problem, why is the cure a much thicker oil? That's the tell. Doubling the oil isn't flushing out debris, it's handing the bearings a thicker cushion to survive on, which quietly admits these engines were built with almost no margin to begin with. The companies keep saying debris, their own repairs are saying something else. Blame the math, not the mechanic. So if it's not lazy engineers, and it's not just bad luck, who's really behind all this? Follow it far enough and you don't end up in a factory, you end up in Washington. For years, automakers were handed a target that got tougher every single model year. A fleet-wide fuel economy average they had to hit across everything they sold. By 2026, that number had climbed toward 49 miles per gallon. Now picture the lineup that has to average up to that. An F-150 in the low 20s, a Tahoe around 18, a Corvette down in the teens. There's no honest way to average those out to 49 on gasoline alone, and missing the target wasn't free. Fall short, and the penalties stacked up, a fraction of a mile per gallon, multiplied across every vehicle sold, climbing into the hundreds of millions of dollars. So engineers were handed an impossible assignment: claw back every sliver of an MPG, whatever it cost the engine. That's where the tiny turbos came from. The water-thin oil, the microscopic clearances. Start-stop, cylinder shut-off, every one of them chasing the fuel economy score, and every one of them quietly shaving away the engine's margin to survive. But here's the part that really stings. Yes, Washington is now tearing those rules up, except that doesn't unbuild a single engine. The fragile designs were already drawn, already bolted together, already sold by the millions. They're sitting in driveways right now. The rules are changing, the bill's already due. The wave hasn't peaked. If you're hoping this is the bottom, it isn't. And here's the uncomfortable reason. These engines tend to fail in a window, somewhere between 60 and 100,000 miles, once the wear finally catches up. And millions of the worst affected engines haven't reached that window yet. So the failures you're hearing about today, They're the front edge of the wave, not the peak. Then there's the fix problem. When regulators reopened the GM case in early 2026, it was because owners said the repair didn't hold. Their engines died again, after the recall. And when the cure doesn't cure, you don't have a solved problem. You have a delayed one. Looking ahead, every automaker faces the same fork. 3 roads and none of them great for you. First road, keep squeezing. Stick with the tiny turbos, the thin oil, the razor tolerances they've already spent billions tooling up for. Same recipe, same risk. Second road, dial it back. Detune the engines, cut the power, drop the towing, trading the muscle you paid for to buy back a little reliability. Third road, hybridize everything. Bolt a battery and a motor onto every truck on the lot. More power, sure, but more parts, more cost, more to break. Here's the catch. Whichever road they choose, it does nothing for the engines already in your driveway. Millions are still out there, still aging, still ticking toward that window. The road ahead is their problem. The road behind is yours. The part that isn't on a spreadsheet. Up to now, we've talked recalls, regulations, engineering. But step back, because none of that is why this actually matters. It matters because of what it does to regular people. Think about who buys these trucks. The contractor who needs it to work. The family that's saved for years for the safe, dependable SUV. We're talking $80,000 Silverados, 6-figure Escalades, and Lexus SUVs. The kind of money most people borrow against their future to spend. And some of these engines are dying with barely 30 or 40,000 miles on them. Half the life of a decent set of tires. So picture it. You finally buy the truck. $1,200 a month every month. Then one morning, kids in the back. You hear it. A knock, then a grind, then nothing. You're coasting to the shoulder, heart pounding. The dealer's verdict, full engine replacement. Sure, it's covered, but the replacement's on back order for weeks. So now you're making payments on a truck that's just sitting there, dead, in a service bay. And here's the quiet insult. Even when you get it back, the damage is done. A near-new truck with a blown and replaced engine, who's going to pay top dollar for that? The resale value's gone. You did everything right and you're still the one holding the loss. Then there's the scariest part. This isn't a check engine light. These engines can seize at speed, losing power in traffic, on a highway, with your family inside. That's not an inconvenience. That's a safety issue, and it's riding on the exact vehicle you trusted most. How to not become a statistic. Let's talk about what you can actually do, because there's a lot, and most of it costs you almost nothing. Start today with your VIN. Head to nhtsa.gov, drop in your vehicle's VIN, and see if it's tied to any recall or open investigation. If it is, book the repair now. Don't wait. These failures love to strike without warning. Fine on Monday, dead on Tuesday. Next, get aggressive with your oil. Whatever your manual says, 7,000, 10,000 miles between changes, cut it roughly in half. Fresh, clean oil is the cheapest insurance you'll ever buy, and a few extra changes a year is pocket change next to a 5-figure engine bill. Stick to a quality full synthetic in the exact spec your engine calls for. While you're at it, kill the start-stop. Every time you fire up, hit that little A-off button if you've got one. That feature hammers your bearings dozens of times a trip, and you're trading a rounding error of fuel economy for a whole lot of wear. Now learn your engine's voice. Get familiar with how it normally sounds so the second a new tick, knock, or rattle shows up, you catch it early. Pop the hood and check your oil level often. A motor that's quietly drinking oil is waving a red flag. And be smart if you're buying. A first-year redesign or a high-strung little turbo with low miles can be a bigger gamble than an older, proven, naturally aspirated engine with plenty of miles already behind it. Boring and durable beats new and fragile. One more, if you own a higher-risk model, look hard at a solid extended warranty that specifically covers engine internals, bearings included. Read the fine print. On the wrong vehicle, that could be the difference between a phone call and a $20,000 problem. None of this is complicated. Do even half of it, and you tilt the odds way back in your favor. So here's the bottom line. Millions of engines across 4 of the most trusted names on the road, all failing for the same reason. Engines pushed right to the edge, with almost no margin left to survive. This wasn't bad luck, it was a choice. And it's your money, and your safety, footing the bill, but now you know what's really going on, and that puts you miles ahead of the next person walking onto a dealer lot. So do this for me. If your engine's already failed, drop your story in the comments. The more of us who speak up, the harder this is to ignore. And if this video saved you from a 5-figure mistake, hit that like button and subscribe. More truth like this is coming, and you'll want to be here for it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.